Imagine you could break Scarlet and Violet's. Okay, that's actually really easy. But imagine you could break Scarlet and Violet in a way that no one has ever done before. Imagine you could take the camera and fly it anywhere, take it anywhere, put it inside of anything. That is what the channel Outward Bound Secrets is all about. These make absolutely fantastic videos. Probably one of my favorite gaming-related channels on YouTube. And they've done a video for Scarlet and Violet. So we're gonna see what we can find when you take the camera all over the place. I absolutely love these videos. I'm really excited for this one because I feel like there's gonna be some really crazy stuff in this. But let's find out, shall we?
This is a quick disclaimer. This is a brand new game from the Pokemon Company with online features, so there's not going to be any tutorials or anything like that to help you replicate what you see in this video. It's only meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. Thank you for...
You can only be educated or entertained on this, okay?
Understanding.
Hey everyone, it's Charlie, or I guess in the world of Pokemon, MC Sledge. I'm super excited to get to intro for this episode of Boundary Break, a show where our lovely host takes a game camera anywhere he wants to try and find secrets and new discoveries to some of your favorite games. This week it's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with the camera provided by Hebo. The hard work is appreciated, so links to follow him in the video description. And
dude, that's so cool that they actually got Charlie on this because everybody made the meme that Charlie Moist Crickle is basically MC Sledge in the game. So you got them to voice it. That's really cool. That's awesome.
Let's see what's lurking outside the game's boundaries.
Hey everybody, it's Critical. Today I'm voicing in this Pokemon game. It's a piece of doo-doo shit
cool
butter.
To do. Thank you so much for doing a little cameo on the show.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Like you said, let's show you what I found out of bounds. When you first meet one of the professors, their whole presence is on a television screen and
oh my god, he can fly. I should have predicted that, to be honest. He does have rocket boots.
I was really curious about how this whole scene worked, and it did not disappoint me. So as it turns out, there's a texture behind the professor. But not only that, there seems to be an unused low poly...
Is that his office? That looks like the office from like the end of the game in Area Zero, right?
Too. That's three-dimensional. And all this is going on outside of Clavel's office.
Is that a train?
Well, the game does use still images to depict the professor as well as the television screen itself, as you can see. There is a 3D model that's always stored out of bounds. It's only the environment around him that may
he's just floating off in the ether like, yeah, I just kind of hang out here sometimes. It's
occasionally
fun.
Get called out.
That's pretty
Another
cool.
very early scene in the game is Clavel explaining the world of Pokemon, just like any other beginning to a Pokemon game. And if we zoom the camera out here, we can see this is a uniquely designed environment that's housed inside of a white box. What's really...
So yes, if you don't know, if you've never seen an Outward Bound Secrets before, it's essentially about taking a free cam and just flying all over the place and showing you what happens behind the scenes of a game. They've done it for so many games. It's really, really interesting to explore because sometimes they find like really cool secrets and they show things that you would never be able to see otherwise. It's really interesting. I love these.
He's housed inside of a white cube, but the white background is specially designed to have a little bit of a gradient effect and placed over that cube, sort of like a tarp. Now I want to talk about the...
This is basically dismantling how games are made and showing you how everything comes together. It's really, it's awesome.
What it does out of bounds. It's kind of neat.
Oh, you're gonna see his massive raging chubby under the ground.
As you might have guessed, its body is completely straightened out when it's under...
Oh, Jesus, your body is absurd. Just look at that bad boy.
The ground. But what you might not know is that when it's traveling underneath the ground, there's a dirt mound at the very bottom of where its body was and physically travels to the spot that it's supposed to go to.
Oh, that's cool. So obviously this little rocket thing you see here, that's the game. That's the character flying around. I guess it still has, when you're using a boost, it must still have this effect that comes up behind it, even though you're technically not on the map.
Also, in this cutscene, when it sort of gets away and you have to do the second phase, it can show you the exact moment in which it disappears, which is honestly pretty soon after he gets off camera. But after that, he's very quickly loaded into his next position. Or should I say, there's actually two of them that are loaded in that position, which is pretty wild. In fact, one character being loaded in two completely different areas at the same time is not uncommon in this game.
I mean, you might as well. That's just saving some time because it's going to be there eventually. It's going to be like, okay, after this flag hits, we're going to have it spawn in a different area at the exact same time because you can't see it anyway. It's not like it's going to cause any problems to the game.
In front of the mansion where you talked to Clavel and got your Pokemon, but that model stays there indefinitely even after Clavel comes over here to talk about your Poke Battle with Nemona. The same can be said for this first boss fight here with Team Star. Although there's a flashback scene, they use the same exact environment that you were just in, and they never unload the boss model from said flashback sequence.
Wait, so it's just a gradient? you're sitting there? I can imagine after you finish the fight, she starts like looking off into the distance. She's like, back in the day, and then a whole gradient comes over and it's like, what is going on? Why is there a gradient? What are you looking at? What is happening?
And here's something that's pretty wild. When a Pokemon evolves and they use this cool little psychedelic background, the camera is moved way outside of where the player was. Although I wasn't able to move the camera around while the Pokemon was actually evolving, once the evolution animation is done, we're left with the camera position of where it was, which is way outside into the void, and just trying to find my original player position was actually really hard. And I'm hoping I'm talking long enough here
they
so
just
that
take you into the
players
void when
can
it evolves?
figure out where it was on the map, seeing as conveniently, this wasn't even by design. At a certain point, we're doing the exercise routine with Dendra while our camera is still trying to figure out where the heck we were. And once again, I can't move the camera around necessarily while you're trading a Pokemon, but since certain character models will move around in the space that I can move the camera, you can kind of get an idea.
She's just hanging out like, damn, that's a whooper, isn't it? Yeah, you got a whoop. Congrats on your whooper.
Where I was with this trainer, just how close this screen is to the trainers that you're training with. Seeing
Okay, I have a new prediction right there. She's actually God, and she just exists everywhere and all the time. She is omnipotent.
I can get her into the scene. And then we had a viewer request.
I'm omnipresent.
As always, you can follow me on Twitter if you ever want an idea of what game I'm going to be covering next, as well as having the opportunity to see something that you would like to see in the episode.
Oh, that's the people that come and cheer. They're like loaded outside of the map. And you come in. Oh, they're the ones that they come into.
Oh,
they're already loaded in.
When you fight against Larry. Now, sadly, there's nothing that special about it. It literally does just fade to black and unload the restaurant and then load in the arena. But by trying to fulfill this viewer request, I did find something really fascinating. See, Larry is the only gym leader where audience members rush in a cutscene sort of way to see the fight.
But they're already loaded in.
All the
That's
spectators are stored out of bounds. And
also, another fun fact about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet: this is the most you'll ever have of an audience. 9 people.
Even cooler is that they're all side by side. And here I can even show you the exact moment in which some of them start piling in for the cutscene. The ones that are left behind just kind of pop into the scene because they're not being used for the cutscene itself. And again, so much of this is just found completely by accident. Here I was just going to show you guys a zoom out of the Dragon Titan battle to give you.
Is that Bombardier's rock there? You see that next to Dondozo? That's the rock that Bombardier drops, isn't it?
A sense of scale for the Pokemon trainer and Dodonzo. But while doing that, I also took the camera underneath the ground, and I saw that during certain cutscenes where Dodonzo has to swim away, there are stone-like orbs that seem to be tracking points for the boss. It also seems—
Oh, the tracking points, okay. It's like the glitch in Scarlet and Violet where there'll be a Pokeball next to a door. It's like spawn points and tracking points for cutscenes.
To be used to spawn in Dondozo.
I think everyone had that Pokeball glitch as well.
Iron Treads seems to shrink away when defeated. And if you take the camera underneath the ground, you can see a teeny tiny version of Iron Treads that still exists in the game's map.
The baby! Oh, look at it, he's so small. Look at the baby!
Now I'm going to give you guys a zoom out of the entire region, but for a purpose. One of the things I wanted to explain to you is that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet use very aggressive frustrum culling. And a very quick layman's explanation for frustrum culling, it's a developer technique that's used to sort of hide renderings to free up some resources for things like frame rate as well.
I feel people are going to get a lot of information from this video. So with game design and game development, obviously, if you don't need to have something loaded, then you shouldn't have it loaded. That's just like the baseline of optimization. And even though people say like, lol, XD, LMAO, Game Freak are bad at optimization, which is true, they're awful at it. If you're not looking directly at something, that doesn't need to be loaded. So you can just delete it and get it gone.
Well as adding extra detail to whatever the player can see. Now, games tend to have different degrees of frustrum culling, and it's very surprising to see to what degree Scarlet and Violet
I didn't know it was called frustrum culling.
Now we have the map completely zoomed out, and as you're going to see as I turn the player camera around, the entire map just seems to get loaded in based off of the view perspective of the player.
Oh, he's turning around right now. So you can see he's looking off in the distance towards the desert, and it just deletes everything even slightly behind him, because I'm pretty sure he's at the Pokemon Center, like in the middle here, around about here. So as soon as he looks away, it immediately removes everything even like 6 steps behind him. That's insane.
You can see the frame of reference in the mini-map that I couldn't even get rid of for this episode, so it works out really well here. But if you want to see it one more time, I'll give you a view of exactly what the player is seeing in that point in time.
Bro, so as soon as he sees the gate, it just destroys everything to that other side of him. Oh my god.
Corner now over the mini-map. And the rest
That's
of what
a
you
lot.
see on
That's
the
kinda
screen
crazy.
here is what the game doesn't allow you to see. Also, some of you might notice that when you reach the school, the game has to load in before you get through the gates. Pretty much nowhere else in the game makes you do this unless you're going inside of a building. But of course, being at the school still technically has you outside. So what the heck is going on here? Well, as it turns out, because the school's building is so graphically intense, it needs to be loaded separately from the rest of the game. And in order
So
to pull this
graphically
off, the rest
intense.
of the world map doesn't technically exist. It's just a textured dome to trick the player into thinking that it exists out there, when in truth, it's just a picture.
So chat, next time you're at the school, just remember, the entirety of reality has collapsed around you. Nothing else exists in that moment, and there is nothing out there. You are alone, truly alone in the universe. Everybody else is dead for that moment.
And now let's talk about something I always thought was really strange. There's this unused area over to the right of the map. Almost certainly going to be DLC at a certain point, but for
That's
now,
the DLC
there's
area.
a landmass out here that the player can't get to. If you try to climb up there, you just slide right back down, and there's no way you could possibly hover
I wonder
over
how
there.
many
It's just
pixels are gonna
simply
be over there.
impossible. So what you're looking at right now is a low poly version of this area, which means that it has the least amount of detail
A poly version of the area, wow. I wonder how many girlfriends they
that I
have.
could possibly provide for you. Just want to make sure that you saw that because I wanted to be absolutely certain that we get to see what at least the developers intended for you to see when you look from the highest point. But
That's a decent amount of land. I wonder what they're gonna do for that. Is that the Portugal DLC?
now I'm as close as you can possibly get. This is probably the
Probably
most
not. They don't even
highly
translate the
detailed
game into
version
Portuguese.
of the map so far before the DLC can be implemented into the game. And what you can see here is that it's just barren. It's sort of like a rock settlement that's placed on top of a rock settlement, if that makes sense. So it sort of looks like a mountain with its own mountain toupee. And there is what the game considers a higher res texture to represent all this rock, but there's nothing else out here. So
Wait, I am curious actually. I pulled up the Paldean map with all the icons on it. You can see right there, he's around, he's just past where the fighting lass is up here, which means if this is a real world, 1-for-1 of Spain, this is the end of Europe, and that is France up there where they're looking up through and where they're standing on. So that means this landmass is actually part of Kalos. If that was going off of the real world Europe, which means that I am now a Kalos DLC truther, and I truly believe in it. Kalos Anon. QAnon,
So basically,
Kalos
you're
Anon,
just gonna have to wait
Kanon.
until the DLC comes out to really know what's up here. But this is what's up here right now, and what you're looking at is a complete shot of the entire DLC area that you're just
That's
not
a
allowed to
decent
see
amount
at
of
the moment.
landmass.
All right, another viewer request was to see how far does the water go, and it kind of got me down a rabbit hole that was really fascinating. I freaking love what I'm about to show you. So there is an end to the ocean. It took a really long time. I had to speed up the tools and everything in order to get out here in a reasonable time. But needless to say, what I'm trying to get across here is that it would take a very, very, very long time to swim all the way out to the water's edge. The entire game's landmass doesn't even come close to matching the game's ocean. And, you know, before I move on to what I
True,
want to
just
talk
like
about
in the
next
real
here,
world.
it's kind of cool to point out. And it's kind of cool to point out that the ocean has sharp line edges. And because it's not spherical, you can count out all the edges and determine what shape it is. If you'd like to pause the video and tell me in the comment section, I'll be more than happy to pin the best answer, even if it's not the factually correct one. And now this is
Dodecahedron.
what I think is really fascinating. The world of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet does not end with its ocean. Despite the fact that it takes so long to travel across all of this water, there's also a blue void that the game developers implemented into the game as well, that I suppose is also supposed
the
to represent
universe.
the ocean. But that's not the game's skybox or skydome.
They couldn't afford a round ocean. That's true. Game Freak is a small indie developer. They probably couldn't afford a round
Whatever
ocean.
you want to call it, it's not that. Because the Sky Dome does exist even well past this mass that exists even further out than the ocean
It's
itself.
space.
And so when we zoom the camera all the way out, I can show you what, honestly, it resembles like a planet. Which I guess, considering how large it is, you could call this a whole planet. But obviously you've been seeing me pull the
Damn.
camera back this entire time. So I don't even need to tell you that that small blue circle that's in the center of this giant planet-sized
Is the
thing,
whole ocean.
That's the entirety of the ocean of the game, which is rendered all at once. There's no culling there.
That is so insane. It is so big. That's actually quite beautiful, to be honest. Looking off into space like that, it's very beautiful.
Pokemon
It's
Scarlet
so
and Violet
huge.
uses a lot of low-level detail models whenever they are just a couple of feet away, and you think that I would just crap all over them. But the truth is that I think that
They're
the
kinda cute.
character models for the Pokemon themselves are really well done. It may be that they had to be modeled by hand, and by that I mean
Oh,
there is
no.
soft
You know what it reminds me of? This Growler specifically. Dude, as soon as I saw that Growler, I was like, no, I know what he looks like. Oh, no. Sorry.
Software out there that knows how to truncate models into a low poly form, and when you look at them up close, they can look pretty hideous. And while on that subject, I think that's exactly what they did for the trainer models,
character.
All their eyes are really, really messed up. It makes for some very hilarious nightmares.
Whoa, hey, that's ableist. They just struggle with eyeballs. They were born like that, okay? Don't...
that you'll be having later tonight.
Nice,
what I'm showing you here is only scratching the surface. Yeah, seriously, you could spend several hours either crying or laughing depending on your age group. Whereas, like I said, with the Pokemon, they're generally fine. There's only been a couple of instances where I feel like it was dependent on how the character model was animated that may have messed up where the eyes were placed and stuff like that. But otherwise, they're pretty clean.
You're not supposed to see this chat. Don't look.
The animations for some of the Pokemon get borked. I don't know why, but it's also hilarious. It's almost as if they're walking on a tightrope instead of a flat surface. It's very strange. Also, lastly, I want to talk about this Wiglet, because even though this is the low poly version,
he has a textured nose? Why did they texture this?
Very highly detailed texture for the nose. In fact, if you take the camera pretty
Oh, I know. Someone at Game Freak has a thing for noses, right?
pretty close here, it almost looks like it's made out of dodgeball texture. Just thought I'd share that. I thought it was really cool.
So you're saying we should
start
kick
talking
it?
about some stuff that I found out of bounds. In your own dorm room, you got this door over here that leads to the bathroom, and no, sadly, there isn't a bathroom on the other side of that door. But what's
Scammed,
really
what the hell? I'm
surprising
gonna complain
is that
about
the
this.
door that leads out into the hallway.
Everybody needs an
does have
ensuite
a fully
bathroom in
modeled
here.
hallway that the player never ever gets to see. Never shows up in a cutscene. You
Nice
can't
carpet.
angle the camera to see past the other side of the wall because there's a black texture that covers it up. Nothing. So this hallway is completely unused. And then the
My favorite part about having a room in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is that you can do nothing ever with it, ever, and it's completely pointless and you don't use it ever for anything.
elevators that are inside of every single gym also have a little bit of a texture that bleeds out into the void, signifying that it may have been intentional at one point for the elevators to be operated. Over at the school, there's
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense because you should go up in the elevator. They probably initially thought that you were going to battle in the actual Pokemon area and in the building because it's a really tall building, except you can only go on the first floor and there's an elevator there. So they probably initially thought, okay, we'll go in there and then you'll have an elevator that goes up into a battle room.
There's this
That's
tree
what I
house,
think
and
anyway.
I apologize to any hardcore Pokemon fans that can tell me otherwise, but I'm pretty sure you don't ever actually get to go to this thing. Well, anyways, if you take the camera inside the building, there is a housing, no pun intended, I swear, on the inside of this thing that also has a fully modeled tree trunk inside of it as well. A level of detail I was not expecting. And if you go up to this giant window here, you can see that it uses parallax mapping. It's not a particularly impressive one, but it does have a floor that's green and a really, really low resolution texture that seems to simulate the windows. Of course,
can do
taking the
it.
camera inside will show you that it doesn't in fact exist, and this is a great counter example to why the inside of the treehouse was particularly interesting, because most building textures in this game are either rendered on one side or have backface culling. Also wanted to show you where the special cutscene caves are for the Titan battles. Every single time you beat a Titan, you're left inside of a cave to get a special ingredient, and then you're never allowed inside that cave again. So I wanted to show you where that is in relation to the overworld map, because if
Oh, they teleport you to an actual... I mean, I guess it has to be an actual physical place, doesn't it?
eventually, once this cutscene's over, the camera position that you're in will show you exactly where that cave was, and it's usually a fair distance away.
Damn, it is off in the middle of the ocean. As soon as you go into the cave, it's like the TARDIS. It teleports into the middle of the ocean. It's like the hyperbolic
From
time
any
chamber.
mainland in the game, but typically pretty close to wherever you defeat the Titan. Like in this case, it was the Flying Titan. And for those that were curious, yeah, those caves that you're not allowed to enter after you're done with
Got
it,
nothing
this is
in
what
there.
it looks like when you take the camera through on the overworld map. It does have a housing, it's just a really, really shallow one, and then there's nothing on the other side of that. This cave in particular has two housings, one that uses the game's
Interesting how no one ever questioned why the cave is completely black, and yet when you walk inside of it, it is very lit and shiny, and there is light inside of it. Interesting.
main. Now I want to show you some low poly buildings. This is the school's low poly model. And honestly, what makes this
Looks
really
like Play-Doh.
fun to look at any of these buildings is that they are fairly detailed for a low poly building. I will say in many games,
so
you
colorful.
tend to just get like a cardboard cutout, but these are all fully modeled, and even up close, it's pretty easy to tell what every model is representing here.
It actually looks like it's melting.
Another really fun one to look at is the Pokemon Center. Obviously, there's no character models all the way out here, but you get some nice strong blues, reds, and yellows to represent
It's
the
a
individual
colorful
stations
game,
at a Pokemon
you know?
Center. And here's one more town in the game I wanted to show you. Again, these low poly models are really interesting to look at, so I wanted to share as many as I possibly could, without boring you guys.
Please
And
help, the
although
entire
you
room
do
is
get to
melting.
technically see this when you obtain a new TM. It's completely covered up by HUD, so it's very difficult to see. So I just wanted to take the camera inside of the TM machine and just wanted to show you that the discs are housed inside of the machine at all times. And because of that, I can give you a nice clean look at what those discs look like. Anyways, I want to thank Charlie and
That's
Hebo
cool.
for helping with this episode. Also, in the near future, we're going to be hitting 1 million subscribers, and I do have a special plan. It's going to be a documentary that's supposed to go from all the way back to before I started Boundary Break to where the state of the channel is now.
This
It's gonna
channel
be a
is
lot
so
of fun.
interesting.
And also, just super quick to
I love
clarify
watching
something
this
for
every
you
now and
guys. I
again,
noticed a
especially
few of you
with
are
games
saying,
that I
"Where's she?"
really, really, really enjoy. There's just so much that you can learn about it, and it's really fantastic. So please, they're almost at 1 million subscribers. They're like 8,000 away. Links in the description. Do yourself a solid. Subscribe to the channel. You will not regret it. Also, you can subscribe to this channel too. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate it.